never be the one to say no to yourself, because since I've adopted that, I've said, oh yeah, I'll submit for that. I'll put myself up for that. I'll let people know that I'm interested in doing that.
Welcome to the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise Artist podcast, where artists of all kinds come to fuel their passion, sharpen their skills, and thrive in their creative lives. I'm your host, Lara Bianca-Pilcher, life and creativity coach and fellow artist, here to support you on your artistic journey. Whether you're a performer, writer, visual artist, or any kind of artist, this is the space for real talk, practical advice, and inspiring stories. Subscribe and join us each week for more inspiration and actionable insights to fuel your artistry. Let's dive in and get inspired. My guest today is awesome. Kahlia Davis and I met in Melbourne, Australia, and now I'm based in the US, but she has also been based in the US at one point in her career and probably will again at some point, who knows. But she trained extensively in performing arts at Packard Studios Australia before going to the US, to the American Musical and Dramatic Academy to complete a diploma in musical theatre. She has done many other performance highlights since then. You can read about it in our show notes, and you can check her out at kahlia.net. I want to start with your story.
Just kind of fell a bit more into singing, then dancing, and it all sort of came together, and I did a lot of training when I was younger. I always thought I would move into a career in sort of communication design and graphic design. I really enjoyed that at school. And I wanted to become a recording artist. So the plan was after school to take a gap year, sort of work on some music, and then go to university to study sort of design communications. And then I went to a one of the open days where they sort of give you the lecture on, here's what life will be like at university, here's what you'll be studying. And I just thought, oh, this is not at all what I want to do.
What you thought it?
Yeah, it just wasn't, because I love all the creative aspects to the design. I don't want to know about the sort of administration aspects. It's all very valuable information, obviously, but just thought I don't want to spend 3 years doing that in order to get to the part where I can finally create something and, design a campaign or design some, in the meantime, I had auditioned for AMDA, a musical theatre school in New York, really just for the experience of the audition, because I had a friend who had auditioned for the school as well and got in. I sang, danced. There was a bit of an interview process and sort of a Q&A. And then I completely forgot about that. That was the summer before I started my final year of high school. And then halfway through that year, they emailed and said, you need to complete your application. We don't have your transcripts. And I hadn't graduated yet, so I sort of sent off my report from the year before, not thinking much of it. And then I was accepted into the school. And
which is crazy, because we're talking about a school, you're in Melbourne and you're talking about school in New York.
Yeah.
So it's like, whoa, life-changing experience.
Right, into the musical theatre integrated conservatory program. And I was like, oh, this is cool, but I sort of had no intention of going. And then the more time passed, it was sort of, my family were very supportive and said, it's only a year and a half. If you get over there and you hate it, what's the worst that's happened? You've had a year and a half in New York, studying musical theatre.
You've had an adventure, yeah.
Exactly.
I love their attitude. It's like, why not? Why not have a go?
Yeah, well, it was sort of over time. It was like, 10% going, 90% not going, and then the sort of percentage increase. And then it was sort of up to me, and they said, we'll support you in this if you want to go. So I said, why not? And then ended up moving over there when I was 18 to
It must have been so
theatre.
exciting for you to go to, did you feel like you were in a movie at the beginning? Because it's kind of like what all the young performers dream of, that they'll get to go to New York. And
it was amazing, but I think I didn't really realize the magnitude of it until I left New York in 2019.
Yeah.
Because it was sort of a new chapter, and I just thought, oh my goodness, how did anyone let me at 18, a child,
come
not really,
to New York? Yeah.
That's really what it felt like. And I was looking back at all these photos just thinking, oh gosh, I was so young, and I just rocked up and was in New York and studying, and it was full on, but definitely set me up to be where I am now.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
And do you
career-wise.
think now, looking back, that it was a good choice to go into the arts and change from your original plan? Are you grateful for it, or are you kind of like, oh, it wasn't the smartest, but it was a good adventure?
Yeah, no, I am grateful for it, because I think it was always going to be something I enjoyed. Like, I loved singing and dancing growing up. I love all the creative things. And I just wouldn't have had the opportunities that I wouldn't have toured the world with different shows and met all of these amazing people in all of these places and worked with these iconic directors. And even if it's not something you think, oh, I'm going to do this forever because I love it and it's my passion and it's all I ever want to do, I can't look back at it and think, oh, well, that wasn't that great. Like, it's been really
worth it. Yeah. Yeah. It's so exciting to hear that. And, you know, from Melbourne, which is one of Australia's arts capital, debatably Sydney as well, going into New York, it's a different arts market entirely. But for those people listening that maybe come from a smaller arts market, what was it actually like for you working? You've done both. You've worked in Melbourne, you've worked in New York and in America. What's like the percentage, not necessarily that you've gone and studied this statistically, but of auditions that you'd go for a week in one country versus the other, just to give people some sense of the difference?
For sure. Well, in Melbourne, excuse me, or in Australia, I know I haven't been here for sort of a year at a time to see what the audition scene is like, but I know that the big shows come around and they usually cast about a year in advance. Shows like Moulin Rouge, Wicked, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, all sort of the big touring shows that come through. And then there are smaller theatres that sort of audition as the shows come up. But in New York, there's a very significant audition season at the start of the year, usually February, March into April. And I would have days where there's 3 auditions on and I need to wake up at 7 a.m, go and sign up for that one, go to another audition, come back in the afternoon session to dance for this other show. And so there are actually times where you have to think, no, how much reasonably can I get done? How many auditions can I go to realistically? There in New York, there are weeks like that where there's just so much on and so many opportunities, and there's hundreds and hundreds of people coming through these studios, as opposed to sort of some very significant markers in the year in Australia of this show's coming, I'll go to that next month, and then I think this show's coming in 3 months' time, so they'll be auditioning around this time, and it's more of the shows that are coming and when they'll be auditioning. But in New York, there's just that phase of audition season where you really can just keep going and try and get into as many rooms as you can.
That's so exciting. It must have been like really eye-opening for you. And I think it's a great place to start out too, your career, because you get to experience like one of the world's probably the theatre capital of the world. Debatably London also is the theatre capital of that area of the world. How did you, speaking of auditions and everything like that and the experience, what do you think's given you the edge in your current show in Moulin Rouge? Do you think it's all the experience you had auditioning that you could go in and feel comfortable, or do you think it's skill, talent, knowing people? What do you think's given you the edge to get into this show you're in now, and maybe other shows as well?
Yeah, I think it's sort of a bit of all of the above. I think a very useful skill in auditioning is being able to walk into a room, and as much as it's about show who you are, be who you are, really looking at, stylistically what they want from a dance perspective, or what they want to hear you sing. And it's not about, oh, but I have this song that I sing really well. It's, no, let me find a song I can sing really well that is tailored to this show.
Very good, yeah.
And sort of the research behind who's in the room, what have they done before, what are the kinds of people they like to work with, and just sort of being very aware. Because as much as the industry is sort of leaning towards come as you are, we accept you and we want to see who you are as a person, which is fantastic. And that's very much the case for Moulin Rouge. But there's also a way to do that whilst saying, and here's how I can fit in as myself in your show and in this context and with this choreography and in this style. And I think that's just sort of something you learn as you go with experience. What does the show require? What are the costumes like? How can I sort of emulate that in who I am to show where I fit into the bigger picture?
And that's such good advice for anybody, whether they're doing pilot season, which is now becoming more like pilot year with the change to the online market rather than an actual season. But Yeah, I think it's really important, isn't it, to actually do your research and go in there knowing. People often try to cut corners with that, don't they? And what would you say too, like, you know, having done so many auditions, have you ever stuffed up in one and not done a good job and or have you just breezed through it?
There are always moments, like sometimes you'll walk out and just think, oh, that was not the one. That was not it. In my audition for Moulin Rouge, actually, the first time we danced, we were coming out of a turning jeté and I rolled over my ankle on the floor and stood up, and it kind of just looked like a turning jeté to the floor, but I stood up and went, oh, that wasn't very good. And I could sort of feel my ankle swelling in my dance boot.
Oh my goodness.
Which was, it took a while to heal. But it's sort of moments like that where you think, I don't think that's make or break, but just,
not everything's always gone perfect.
Wouldn't have happened. Yeah, exactly. But I think in those situations, the best thing you can do is just kind of stand up. And I find actually that audition rooms are becoming increasingly more, not casual, but more sort of human in interactions and in understanding, especially post-COVID and coming out of that. I think the industry, at least in Australia, fortunately with my company, definitely has a far greater understanding of sort of everyone's individual positions and what they might have gone through to get through where we are now and to get to where we are now, rather. So that's sort of a bit of a comfort, knowing that everyone in the room is sort of wanting you to do well and understanding that you're there on this day and a million things might have happened before or after, but here we are doing the thing to be in the show.
It's actually really lovely to hear about the humanity of it. Like, I found a very big difference in the Australian auditions were far more relaxed and laid back, not in terms of skill level, just in terms of the feel in the room from what I did in London. And that's probably partly cultural. And I'm sure that you've experienced differences in the way things are done to some extent in different countries as well, right?
Yeah. There was my experience with this, because in New York, sometimes they have so many people, they just think, okay, they come out and say, give us 8 bars. So usually it's like maybe 32 bars and 16 bars. And then if there's 500 people, they'll say, come in, give us your best 8 bars, which is a little melody and probably
singing, give
your highest note. Yes. And for my Moulin Rouge audition in Melbourne, people were coming out and saying, oh, I had the best chat with everyone. That was great. And I had gone in, as I do in New York, walk to the piano. Hi, how are you? I'm Kahlia. I'm singing this, sing my song, collect my music, get out, because it's so fast paced and it all happens very quickly. And I sort of came out and went, oh no, should I have chatted? Should I have stayed a bit longer? But I did take comfort in the fact that the creative team in there were all American, so they would have been more familiar with that sort of fast-paced.
They're probably like, who are these Aussies talking, having a conversation? What is this? They probably loved it.
So that was some comfort. Like, I haven't misread the room. I'm just doing what I usually do, and they'll be familiar with that.
Yeah, and I've heard too, like from my experience of auditions in Australia, I haven't had the cuts that they do in New York, where it's like you go in and you make sure you know your 8 bars and your 32 bars and you make sure you already have them in advance. I've always sung the whole song. So in Australia, it's just really nice. But those ones are not cattle calls. So I think there's probably less people going through them. But of course, you know, in London, you get dancers lined up at Pineapple Dance Studios around the corner waiting to go into a cattle call, and, you know, you've got to get through those extremely fast if you're not going for a role, if you're going for ensemble. So I know that it's like very different in each country, isn't it? And tell me, like, what is your top tip for handling rejections? I'm sure you've experienced so much of that going through so many auditions.
Yeah, you sort of need to be sad about it. If it's a show you really wanted and it didn't work out, you need to take a minute or a day or however long. I usually just try and make it the day and just say, that went terribly. I really wanted that. And I'll sort of allow yourself to feel that, the disappointment of it. But then coming out of that, knowing that it could be for any number of reasons, most of which could be completely out of your control.
Yeah.
And I just kind of take comfort in that, in thinking, sure, maybe it's because I didn't dance my best, or I didn't, whatever. But it could also be because I'm too short to partner the person they've already hired. It could also be because they need me to cover, they need this track that I was auditioning for to cover a role which I can't cover. And it could be for an infinite amount of reasons. Sometimes you can get feedback from the team through your agent, which can be helpful. It might be the vocals weren't quite strong enough. If she works on this, this, and this, we'd love to see her again for this role. That's always helpful. But I think the key is just you need to allow yourself to be sad and then just think, okay, moving on. What's the next thing? Because it can, if you just hold on to it, it can really just weigh you down. And I see that with a lot of people who just hold on to this disappointment, and it affects how they're going into their next auditions. Or it's always but what if question. And I also just think, well, if I didn't get it, then it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe it'll be for me in a year's time or in 2 years' time. And it works the opposite way as well. I've gone in for things and booked the job and thought, oh, never would I have thought that I would be right for this show, but here we are. It's meant for me. So
yeah.
I think, the flexibility to just kind of roll with the punches as they come in the industry is,
It is.
helpful.
It takes a skill, doesn't it? And I certainly, like, even last week I'd still call it a mini rejection where I didn't get something, and I felt really sad. And you can find yourself there's a line in the sand where you can either go into the thinking that's not useful, where it's like, I clearly aren't very good at this, or, and go down that whole really negative way of thinking, or you can go what you said. And I think it's far healthier and actually more accurate to pull yourself out from the, I must suck at this kind of thing. Like, I just wasn't right for it. And there could be numerous reasons that you would never know. And clearly you are talented enough, because there's other jobs that have been booked. But yes, it's true. Like, if you haven't booked for something for 20 years, like, it might be time to go back to class and get some feedback. But generally speaking, like, it is hard. It is hard to book when there's so many people going for so few jobs. So, how have you gone with finding castings and generally just getting yourself in the room? Is it an agent for you, or what do you think it is?
It's not an agent for me. I did, coming out of school in New York, I did look into a few agents, and we had our showcase or agent day at school, and a few agents were interested, and I sort of reached out to them, and then it quickly became a case of, but you're international and we don't know how long you'll be here for, and if we invest time and money into you, and then but it's actually in New York nice in that sense, because you have an audition season. Playbill and Backstage were the two main sites I used to find auditions. And they'll have
subscribe to those, and there's a paid subscription. Yes,
and they'll have open call for these shows, these studios, these times, come and audition. And so I found all my audition listings through that, and just, turned up and did my dance and sang my song. But if I found that I couldn't audition for things, or I found that there was a show coming up that I wanted to be considered for, I would often just email the casting director directly, or a director if I knew them, or one of the creative team, and just be like, hi, my name's Kahlia. Here's my headshot and resume. Here's my dance reel. Here's my vocal reel. I'm interested in being considered for this show. Please let me know when I can audition. Many thanks.
Yes.
Or I see you have an audition coming up on this date. I'd love to be considered. Here are my materials. And that's what I did for Moulin Rouge here. Just emailed the casting director and said,
so good.
All of that. Please consider me. Would love to see you on this day when you're auditioning in Melbourne. And I think if you approach people in that way, and you sort of give them all you are up front, it's not hi, if you want I can send you my headshot, I can send, no, like, hi, here I am, here are all my materials
in one email. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's so important too, like, for the listeners, that they make sure that their kit is together and ready to go, and it's professional and it's top notch, and you know how to approach these people. You don't say, do you want my reel, because they won't get back to you. And you don't send a yucky reel or a tacky reel, and there's a protocol, isn't there? There's a way to do it. And it's obviously paid off for you.
It has. I mean, I got into the audition room, and here we are.
Yeah, you're in it. So from here, like, you're in the show, just tell me, what's your top health and wellness tips for maintaining a really busy show schedule, getting on stage every day, every night, and for you, multiple tracks because you're swing. Like, how do you keep yourself show ready and fit? And
it's really hard for this show, and it's been difficult because of all the stop-start with COVID and yes. So it's been a very new experience discovering how to handle it all. Usually for a show, I will just do the show to build up stamina in the early months, and then once your body becomes used to it, you'll think, okay, I can now do this at the gym. I need to be making these adjustments with cardio outside in order to support the show. So it becomes more of a working out to support the show. In that, I think the most important thing is just to listen to your body. I mean, it's a job. And I think some people sort of forget that or think, oh, that's fun that you do theatre. It's a nice hobby. And it's like, well, no, actually, it's a full-time job. Yeah. So I'm someone that sort of comes home and thinks, okay, but I have so much to do and I want to make sure I get this done this week and da-da-da. But also just coming home and being like, no, I need to actually just eat something, watch a TV show and go to sleep and not set my alarm for early and just let my body heal and my voice recover, and really listening to what you need, because it's very easy to sort of just get on that hamster wheel and keep going.
Yeah.
But taking the time to think, no, I actually need to roll out when I get home tonight. I actually need to go and get a massage on my day off because that's what my body needs so I can prepare myself for the next week. So it is a lot of that self-care and sort of listening to your body and what you need physically and mentally. And I think if you're keyed into that, it sets you up for success.
It's so good. That's such good advice. I've got one quick question on future dreams from here. Like, you've done so many shows, you've studied again something quite like, I don't know how to describe it, but something quite different. What you Masters of Business, Arts and Cultural Management.
Yes.
Where to from here for Kahlia?
I wish I could say. I would really love to spend some time in London. I've worked in the US, I've worked here now, and London's just another big musical theatre hub, and I love London as a city. So I would love to work over there. Maybe back to the US. Honestly, the thought of going through the whole visa process again.
It's full on for the US.
is a bit exhausting already. So I'm not in a hurry to get back there. I think I'd love to go to London. And I've always sort of sensed that my career would move into other directions outside of performing, because I love all creative things. So whether it's, I love teaching, I love choreographing and directing. So maybe down the track that will be an area I move into, but I'm just enjoying performing while I can, and or hopefully get over to London. I think that's the next move.
That sounds very exciting. All right, I've got some quick express questions for you before you go. A hard lesson learnt.
A hard lesson learned is your limitations, and knowing how to accept those limitations, whether that be, I'm injured and I need to modify my show, whether that be, but vocally or physically I'm just not right for that part, and being okay with that. That's sort of a hard thing to come to terms with, of just like, it's just not for me. It sort of circles back to that rejection thing of, yes, we can keep improving and we can keep working to different things, but there are certain roles you just won't play.
Yeah, true.
And there are certain, like I will never be La Chocolat in Moulin Rouge.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's a role for a beautiful Black woman, and she sings these incredible things. I'm like, so fun to sing, but it's just not me. So accepting that's sort of a bigger part of that is injury when it comes, and just thinking, this is very disappointing, this is hard to deal with, but these are my limitations at this time, and working through being okay with that and overcoming that.
So good. Good advice. A tip for creative success, one of the many in the bag of Kahlia tricks.
Creative success. I think just keep exploring new things. Even if it seems a bit stupid, or it seems a bit, this is just completely outside of the realm of possibility, or it doesn't fit, or it doesn't whatever. Just shut down the voice that says no, don't try that because it won't work, and just try it, and maybe it works and maybe it doesn't, or you might find it might lead you to the next thing. Just keep sort of pushing forward and trying new things as often as you can.
That's good advice. That's so true in the arts. One tip for financial income. I know there's probably many things. I know you've had to work side hustles.
Yeah.
In the arts, specifically in the arts.
In the arts, try and plan ahead as best you can. Don't never think, oh, it's great that I have good money coming in. I will eat what I want and buy what I want and go out and, spend it while I have it. Really try and plan ahead. That was a big thing for me in America, because I couldn't work outside of the arts. So if I knew I had 3 contracts lined up and then didn't know what was happening after that, I knew in that time I would have to live off what I earned during that time, because I couldn't go and work in a restaurant, or I couldn't go and work in retail. So just that mentality of planning ahead and dividing your income as it comes in. This is savings, this is expenses, and really trying to stick to that, even if it looks like you have a lot of money you can splurge. But I think that sort of sets you up long term in the best way.
That's so wise. Okay, final thing before we close is a word of encouragement for those in the arts right now.
A word of encouragement. It's hard. It's hard sometimes, but if you really love it and it's really what you want to do, stick with it, and keep seeking out opportunities, and never be the one to say no to yourself. I heard that somewhere, and it just stuck with me, because there will be things that come up and you think, oh no, never be the one to say no to yourself, because since I've adopted that, I've said, oh yeah, I'll submit for that. I'll put myself up for that. I'll let people know that I'm interested in doing that. And oftentimes those opportunities have come through because they've seen you're enthusiastic about it. They've seen that you think you're capable of it. And if I had have said, oh no, I won't do that, and said no to myself before I let anyone else say no to myself, then those opportunities wouldn't have come up. I wouldn't have got that promotion. I wouldn't have earned that extra money. I wouldn't have met these new people that have led me to the next opportunity. So never be the one to say no to yourself. If someone else says it, be prepared for that rejection, but believe in yourself enough to put yourself forward and not be the first one to say no.
Thank you so much, Kahlia. And she's going to rehearsal right now, aren't you?
Off to rehearsal, yes. We've got cover rehearsal today and then a show tonight.
Thanks, Kahlia. Thank you for tuning in to the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise Artist podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss an inspiring conversation or actionable insight. You can read the show notes and learn more at larabiancapilcher.com. And be sure to share this episode with fellow artists who could use a little extra inspiration. Until next time, keep creating, stay audacious, and remember, your artistry matters.